Hello everyone and welcome back to MainStage 101. My name is Ian Cunningham and today I'm going to be showing you how to utilize the EXS24 sample library within MainStage 3. First, what you want to do in order to get started is pick a random sound right here now that you've got your screen patch loaded right here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go over to the patch list. Then you're going to want to pick plus. So then you have an untitled patch. So the way you would create your own sounds is by going over to the channel strips area over here. Press the plus right here on the top right. Then the next thing you want to do is select software instrument. Okay, so next thing you want to do is go over to input and then choose the EXS24 sampler. And usually what I like to do is put it in stereo so you have a nice spread out image of each of your sounds. So the next thing you're going to want to do is go over to this little bank right here, click on it, and then it'll pull up all of your sound banks ranging from acoustic pianos to Mellotron synthesizers to guitars to basses to drums, whatever you need. So just for the sake of tutorial purposes today, let's choose a piano sound. Let's go with grand piano right here. All right, so now that we got our piano sounds, the next thing we want to do, if we want to give it a little bit more color, is go over to the audio effects right here. So what we can do, let's start with channel EQ. So usually what I like to do for pianos is usually start off with the keyboard defaults if you're new to understanding how EQ works. So for hypothetical purposes, let's go for piano bright. So as you're playing, it'll give you an idea of what range the piano lies under. So right now we're looking at right around like 500 hertz. So let's say we wanted to add a little bit more air and more presence to the piano. What we have here is the more high-end frequency. So what we would want to do is move this a little bit up to around 10,000 hertz, and then increase it by about 5 decibels. All right, and if we want to get a little bit more fancy, the next thing we can do is add some reverb to it. So what we do is go over to Silververb, which is our reverb plugin. And then on the factory default, if you're new to reverb, it'll give you a lot of different presets right here, such as ambience, backroom, gated reverb, hall, and meeting room. So usually what I like to do is give it a little bit more of an ambience color and then maybe bring the high cuts down to around 6,700 hertz. And then I usually like to have a balance between the wet and the dry outputs. So usually what I like to do is bring it down to 66% and have the dry down to 44%. All right, so let's say that we wanted to add another sound onto this current sound. So again, what you want to do is go over to the plus sign right over here under channel strips. Again, create software instrument. Then once again, let's do EXS24 in stereo. And to match up with the piano, let's try going over to synthesizers and collecting a synth pad. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that some of these synth pads won't sound way too cohesive with the piano sound that you're using, so you kind of have to do a little bit of a trial and error with each of these pads to see which ones would sound the closest. So let's try Fast Attack Choir. All right. So this is the choir sound individually. And then here's both of the piano sound and the choir sound. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is add some EQ and reverb to the pad sound. So let's start with EQ. And for the factory defaults, since we're dealing with the pad, let's go with voice. And then we're going to try compressed vocals. So in order to hear the differences between each of these preset EQ effects, here's a good way to do a little bit of exercise for yourself. Here's with it, and here's without it, with it, and then here's without it. So you kind of hear the difference a little bit. For those who are new to understanding EQ, it's basically a tool that's used to control the volume of a certain frequency within an audio source. Normally, if you were to turn the volume fader up or down, it would control the overall volume. But when using EQ, you have the power to control the elements and the frequencies of the sound source. The piano example I gave earlier in the video fell right around under 500 hertz, which is part of the low mid-range frequencies. The low mid-range frequencies go from 200 hertz to 600 hertz. So let's say, for example, if you were working with a bass guitar or a kick drum, it would probably be best to mix between 1 and 200 hertz. And really the main reason why EQ is used is to balance the frequency spectrum, and it's very helpful when fixing the areas that are unbalanced. So now that you have a basic understanding of how sound design works within MainStage 3 with the EXS24 library, I'll be showing you how to mess with different sound libraries in my next videos. See you next time.